Tournaments for some real prizes have already begun for this real-time PvP mode. And in this video, I am talking about the best characters that you can get on your roster so that you can dominate in some of these upcoming tournaments. Yeah, and if you're ready for it, guys, you know what to do. Let's go smash it.
ValleyFlyin.
What is up, Valley Maniacs? ValleyFlyin here. I am back. Welcome to the channel. It is time to talk about some real-time PvP, the hottest game mode in Marvel Strike Force. Even with some of the bugs that was revealed in Casino's video, I think this is still one of the most fun game modes in my opinion. And I'm going to talk about how some strategy that you could use in drafting, because so much of this game mode comes down to drafting, guys, and there are a couple characters that are right at the top. If you get these characters on your roster, you get multiple versions of these characters on your roster, your opponent doesn't get any, you're probably going to win. So I'm going to talk about that top tier. Then I'm going to talk about the rest of these characters, your middle tier. Most of your roster should be made up of these characters. And if you're really serious about real-time PvP, you probably want to start building up some of these characters because they're going to be very, very valuable to you in real-time PvP matches. And then I want to talk about some sleepers. If you have some good red stars in these characters, you probably want to invest a little more in these characters for real-time PvP purposes. But without further ado, guys, let's get into this top tier of characters and talk about the characters that are probably going to get banned. All right, so in my opinion, 6 characters that are very, very strong. If you get multiple characters of this first tier on your roster and your opponent doesn't get any, they're going to be in rough shape. And we got to start with my man, the king of Atalan, Black Bolt. Very, very strong. I don't think too much else needs to be said about this character because I think if you've been playing this game for a while, watching some of the news on this game, you already know Black Bolt is one of the best characters. I love his passive, that little extra attack that he does when an enemy drops below 25% health. Woo! Big damage. 200% goes up to 400% if it's a villain tech enemy. If you could get Black Bolt on your team and manage to keep your opponents from getting any of these other 6 characters, you're going to be in great shape for a real-time PvP match. Next character, Captain Marvel. This is the character that could take out war offense teams all on her own, especially if she is on war defense with some good synergy. You really need to punch up against Captain Marvel. Now, one problem I see, if you leave Captain Marvel too late in a match, when your character is already kind of weakened from getting attacked, she's going to be very, very hard to kill, especially if you don't have a healer. So Captain Marvel, not a character that you want to sleep on, and not a character that you want to save for last if possible, because yeah, she could be very, very tough to deal with if she's constantly getting her health back from her passive and you're not. Next character, I think it is another obvious choice. It is Hela. That Hela Greg combo, one of the best team ups in the game. Plus her move Death Knives, very, very strong, spreading debuffs around. So very good synergy with a debuff team. Also has some good synergy with that Asgardian team that we're going to talk about in just a little bit. But yeah, passive healing as well. So harder to kill, has some sustainability. She has disrupted with her special as well. So very, very strong character. And if you could get Hela on your roster, I would recommend it for a PvP match. Next character I want to talk about is Phoenix. Again, I think you guys have been following this channel long enough that you know Phoenix is a very strong character. Get her. You're probably going to win if your opponent doesn't have anything to counter it. But yes, she can make or break a match if you have a Phoenix and the opponent doesn't have any ways to counter her. Huge damage, has some healing. She just does a little bit of everything. Very, very strong, especially when she goes into that Dark Phoenix form. We also have Mr. Sinister, the clone master. And unlike the AI, your opponent is probably going to clone the correct character on your roster if they have a Mr. Sinister. So you want to keep Mr. Sinister out of their hands because that could throw a monkey wrench in the battle. Unless you're like me and let it time out and let the AI just choose whoever, Mr. Sinister can be a game changer depending on who he clones. And the last but not least is our boy ULTRON. Was the meta for so long. He's been kind of a victim of power creep, but if you let him get rolling, all his bots on the field, calling more bots, keeping his cooldowns intact, it's going to be a long day for you. So ULTRON is a character that you probably want to keep out of the enemy hands and try to get him on your team if possible. So those were kind of your wish list characters. these are more the characters that you're probably going to end up building most of your roster with in a PvP mode. And if you don't have these characters built up and you are thinking seriously about real-time PvP, I would recommend building up these characters along with some of the sleepers that I'm going to talk about. Let's talk about right here. Scientist Supreme, one of the best characters in real-time PvP in my opinion, and if I see her on the enemy team, usually she is going to be my opening target, and she does a lot so well. Very valuable in multiple game modes because of this, applying debuffs to the enemy teams, flipping debuffs on your team, and she can revive a character. And I've seen a lot of battles go the other way. I have seen one person up very big, Scientist Supreme brings a key character back to life, and the battle changes right there. She is a game changer in this game mode, one of the most valuable characters in my opinion, especially outside of that top 6. But yeah, sometimes I have seen her banned over those top 6 characters because she just provides a lot of value. So Scientist Supreme, build her up, especially for real-time PvP, guys. Next character we want to talk about is Yo-Yo. So she is a protector, applies offense down to the enemies, but I think a lot of people are forgetting when they pick her on the team, if you pair her with Invisible Woman or the Juggernaut or someone else, she's not going to do the offense down. Looking at her passive right here, on enemy turn, if this character has no other protector allies, that is when she's going to do offense down to the enemy. So keep that in mind if you're using Yo-Yo, guys. But yes, she provides some protection, some survivability for your team in different ways by applying that offense down to the enemies. And if you don't have anybody really protecting your team and you're not going just full out offense, then Yo-Yo could be the way to go. This is not a character that I see drafted as much, but yeah, very good character if you can get her on your team and you have no other protectors. She can provide some value to you. Next character, Invisible Woman. We talked about her because she does have that protector tag, so not a good pairing with Yo-Yo, but good character to have on your roster because she can cleanse debuffs off of your team. She can put people into stealth. She could put barrier on your team as well, giving them a little more survivability. She can put offense down on the enemies. So yes, she does a lot to keep your team alive. Not one of the first characters I normally go after, but can be very, very annoying if you leave her around to the end and get a lot of barriers up. Yeah, she could destroy some of your plans that you're trying to go after. So very good protector. If I don't get Scientist Supreme to enable flipping buffs, this is usually the backup character that I go for buff flipping. We'll talk about or debuff flipping, excuse me, but we'll talk about some other options that you have if both of these characters are off the field. Next character I want to talk about is my boy Magneto, and he is a very, very popular pick in real-time PvP mode. Offers the pooling of characters together, just making them all adjacent to each other with his ultimate, also applying that blinds. Usually that is the best turn 1 move, although in certain situations I've seen people use his basic or special on that opening turn, but his special, very, very good. Applies slow, applies disrupted to the enemies. So Magneto is a very good character to have on your team, especially if you have a battle long enough that he goes a second time with this ultimate. Oh, that can be rough as a second time late in the battle, guys. But Magneto is a character I think you should definitely be building for real-time PvP mode. Other character is Shuri the Legendary. Shuri, she is a very, very strong healer in the game. In my opinion, one of the best healers in the game. She provides defense up, an early defense up, which can counter some of these early turn burst damages that you get with a Captain Marvel or a Loki or another character that's going to hit you hard very quickly. Defense up kind of mitigates some of that damage. Also has a big heal on her ultimate, so it does a lot of good things. Don't bring her in for damage though. Bring her in to help you survive. So yes, taking out the healer of the enemy team is a very good move. So Shuri is normally a pretty early on target for me. All right, Symbiote Spider-Man. This character is going to really depend on his build. If you pair him with a character like a Magneto or a Hela that's really buff or debuff reliant, he will thrive, especially if you manage to get some other symbiotes on the team, if you have them built up enough. But that's very good basic, very good special, very good ultimate. That if you get this enemy if you get the energy, distribution on this, you might be able to do this stun on turn 2, which is very, very valuable in this turn-based game. Yeah, very strong character, and he's tricky. He has some survivability. He has that dodginess as well. So if you have a decent enough symbiote Spider-Man, definitely a character that I would recommend bringing on your team, depending on what kind of team you're building. Loki, in my opinion, Scientist Supreme and Loki are the two best characters on this tier. Loki does so much, and I try to keep Loki away from Hela, and I try to keep Loki away from Captain Marvel. I don't want my opponent having that trio right there, or even a duel with Loki and one of those characters. Just not very good news for you. He provides a lot of early turn damage with his special, with his mind control. If you got that T4 in like I do, controlling 2 enemies onto a defense down enemy, good stuff there. And he provides some survivability as well. Doesn't have the protector tag, so Yo-Yo is not useless with Loki around. But Loki, that's stealth, puts characters into stealth, summons some clones as well. So yes, Loki provides a lot of value, especially if you pair him with some other Asgardians. Maybe you got lucky on those red star pulls. He's going to throw them into stealth every time they drop below 50% health as well. So yes, very good character. One of the MVPs in my opinion, especially of this second tier. Falcon, another MVP of this second tier because he provides your team with speed. And in a turn-based game, speed kills. Red Wing, his special. Lots of speed, especially if you're going up against like an Ultron or someone that's going to have a lot of summons with buffs on the enemy team. He's a good counter to Shuri as well because of that opening defense up. Red Wing just gives a lot of speed to your team. And yeah, turn-based game speed, very, very strong. This AoE is not too shabby either, especially if you've invested a little bit into this character. I got the 5 red stars. I probably should put more into Falcon just for real-time PvP, but this is no joke as far as damage if you've built up this character enough. So does a lot of good things. Damage, speed, what more can you ask for? In my opinion, one of the top, probably right after Loki and Scientist Supreme is where I'd rank Falcon as far as this next tier of characters. And then let's move on to Vision. Very, very good character. And he's been one of the best characters in the game for a while. Just kind of been lacking a solid team. I think a lot of people have been using him on that power armor team, but with Ironheart's introduction to the game, kind of becoming homeless very, very soon. But that does not mean that his kit is bad. He has an ability block for the primary and adjacent target. He could clear buffs, and that ability block can be very, very disruptive to any of your plans if he gets it on the right character. He could dodge as well. He's got bleeds on his basics, so very, very strong character. And yeah, if you're playing on that right side with the AI like dodge, he could dodge a lot. So very good character. I would recommend building him up, especially if you're going with a debuff team and spreading some debuffs like with a Hela, maybe even a Scientist Supreme, just for that ability block alone. If you're able to spread that with Hela's move, very, very good. Or even a Venom as well. All right, and the last character I want to talk about in this next tier is MINN-ERVA. I mean, the best healer in the game. What else is there to say? Shuri, one of the best. MINN-ERVA, I think, is the best. She has a great ultimate, stealing 15% of the enemy health. So very, very strong move. Percentage-based move. Very good stuff. She has healing every time an enemy dies. So if you're going up against bots, if you're going up against like an Ultron or a Loki where you're killing multiple minions, she could provide a lot of health to your team. Plus, yeah, like Scientist Supreme, she could bring a character back to life. So there's a lot of value right there with just her resurrection move. So MINN-ERVA providing a lot of value to the team. As you can see, mine is not built up very much, but even without that, she still has a very good kit because a lot of her value is based on her kit and not necessarily based on her stats. All right, so we've seen the wish list characters. Hopefully you get some of those characters on your team. We've seen the meaty characters that you're probably basing your team around. These are your sleeper characters that you could fill out your roster with and maybe build your roster around depending on how lucky you've gotten with red stars on some of these characters. First two I want to talk about is Carnage and Venom. Now, the team composition these guys are obviously well suited in is a debuff heavy composition because they both have the abilities that spread debuffs, but also a symbiote team. So if you manage to get symbiote Spider-Man on your team, Carnage Venom would not be a bad decision if you have the power level to support that decision. Carnage, lots of bleeds, and if an enemy goes below 25% health, you're going to fill the speed bar for 30% for him and all symbiote allies. This could be very big if you're fighting a lot of minions like Ultron bots, Loki bots, maybe Fury minions. But yeah, could be very, very big skill, or a Greg even. Venom does a lot of good things as well. He flips debuffs, or he flips buffs, excuse me. He has bleeds as well. He has ability blocks. He spreads buffs and he gets more health. So both of these characters, depending on your scenario, can be very, very valuable to you. Our next category of sleepers I want to talk about is these protectors. And these aren't characters that I really look to get on my roster unless something happens with my team building composition or unless I see something on the enemy that I need to counter. First one is Colossus. If you can manage to get Phoenix on your team, excellent protector for Phoenix, and he will help to keep her alive. Drax is a good one if you are going up against a lot of early turn damage. So if you've managed to let your enemy get Loki, Captain Marvel, you could bring Drax in to kind of mitigate that early damage so none of your other 4 characters are going to die. But Drax is kind of a wasted spot, not really going to do too much else except for soaking up that initial damage. But if you have those 4 characters to support it, can be very, very valuable so the rest of the 4 don't die. Other character I want to talk about is Juggernaut. Now, not only does he get a lot of buffs, and once he gets his taunt up, very hard to get around, but he's also going to give Magneto a little extra speed, allowing Magneto to get his ultimate off a little sooner. So I would recommend Juggernaut if you have Magneto. I would recommend Colossus if you have Phoenix. I probably would not recommend them in any other scenario. And Drax, if you need to mitigate some early turn damage, that's the only time I would use any of these 3 characters in PvP. So the next few sleeper characters I want to talk about are your damage dealers. And these are characters that are very, very good if you built them up enough to kind of match the rest of the team, or they're stronger than the rest of the team. First character I want to talk about in this scenario is Human Torch. Now, as you can see, I've gotten pretty lucky with red stars, but haven't really built him up enough to really use him in this mode. Does a lot of damage though. He applies offense up on this opening move to him and 3 Fantastic Four allies. So if you're teaming him with Invisible Woman, maybe you have a very strong Thing or someone else, he'll be very good for that offense up. But the big move I want to talk about, he's got a big strong ultimate as well. Very scary ticking time bomb, but this one, Flame On, is another strong move that he has on turn, flipping 2 negative effects on self to positive effects. So kind of like Deadpool, you can't place debuffs on him because it's just going to benefit him. And in his scenario, it's not going to heal him. It's going to flip and make them positive effects for him. So Human Torch is definitely a character that you don't want to sleep on, especially if you could build them to a pretty good power level. All right, the next character I want to talk about in this category is Killmonger. Some huge damage potential from Killmonger, especially if you get his crit chance up. And yes, he is draining on his hits as well. So very, very strong character, can kind of sustain himself. You do need that power to justify it. I've gotten lucky on these red stars on Killmonger, but haven't really worked on him yet to make him valuable in that game mode. But if you have a strong Killmonger, he will be very valuable in real-time PvP. And Ghost Rider, he can be a pain. Every time you kill someone, he is going to attack them. Does some huge damage if you have him built up. Now, as you can see, only 3 red stars on my Ghost Rider, so he's not someone that I'm taking into the game mode until I get better red stars on him. But yes, if you have a very strong Ghost Rider with some strong red stars, he can turn things around for you in that real-time PvP mode. So don't sleep on Ghost Rider, Killmonger, or Human Torch. Shuri is my #1 character for early defense ups, but if she is gone or she's been eliminated, Nick Fury is my second option. And yes, very valuable for real-time PvP because not only does he provide defense ups, he can also heal. He can call in shield minions and does some good stuff. He's a very good character. Don't be sleeping on him just because he's one of the early legendary characters. Still has a lot of value and can still give you some value in real-time PvP, especially if you're trying to mitigate some early turn damage from the enemies. All right, so if you've missed out on one of the early cleansers, you got some backup options that you don't want to sleep on, especially if you have these characters built up pretty high and manage to roll some good red stars on these characters. So first option is going to be Psylocke. Now, this is probably not the best option. Astral Butterflies can clear 2 negative effects from each ally, but it has a very long cooldown. So I would bring her in if she has some synergy with the rest of your team and she's going to serve a specific role to counter the other team. But this is an option for you, probably not my top option for the cleanser of your team. Groot is another option. This is pretty good because it's only a 4-turn cooldown, so you better get this off a little quicker. But yeah, only 2 negative effects per turn, so this is not ideal. But yes, if Scientist Supreme and Invisible Woman are gone, you're not having a lot of options. But the good thing, he does have death proof. He does have defense up that could go to all allies on a 3-turn cooldown. So yeah, he could be really tricky. Plus, he gets defense up when he dies, and he has a chance of coming back to life. So Groot can be very tricky. Jessica Jones, one of the obvious choices, but as you can see with my Jessica Jones, 2 red stars, so I'm not building her up. But yes, this move right here, Shake It Off, clearing all negative effects himself, triggering 3 effects from allies, 4 turn cooldown. So not happening often, but often enough that it will make a difference. Plus, she has some energy distribution, so she's another good option. Granted that you have her built up and have more red stars than I do right now. All right, and 2 characters that I want to talk about that I think a lot of people are sleeping on, and maybe because they only have 4 red stars like I do on Mordo and Graviton, but these characters have opening turn stuns, which can totally screw up an enemy team. Mordo has some survivability. Both of them have very strong passives, but yes, if you put the T4 in Mordo's special, he can stun on turn 1, plus applying a lot of blinds, but in a death of any character, healing self and the most injured supernatural character for 10% of this character's max health. So that means if you're fighting a team of minions or a Hela with a Gray, he could be healing a lot and self-sustaining a lot. Graviton, very strong passive as well. When an enemy drops below 50%, increase the duration of their negative effects by 1 up to a maximum of 5. So on a debuff heavy team like the symbiotes, like AIM, like Magneto, he can be a very, very big addition to your team. Plus, with this move, yes, turn 1 stun for this character. So those are my picks, guys, of the best characters that you could use in real-time PvP. You got some of the wish list characters. You got some of your more basis characters that I think a roster can be based around, and hopefully you draft to get them as a good synergy with these characters as possible. And then we got some sleeper characters that are very circumstantial, could be valuable additions to your team if you have them built up crazy high, or depending on what your opponent's doing, or depending on what your team is shaping out, those sleeper characters can be very valuable to you. Let me know what you think. Did I forget anybody? Are there characters on this that should not be on this list? Let me know, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, because there are more videos coming. At least 4 videos per week on Marvel Strike Force on this channel. So if you haven't already, guys, subscribe to the channel, smash on that like button, join the notification squad so you get notified every time there is a new video on this channel. Yeah, you could be one of the first to leave a comment, and I will see you guys next time. There's some links down below that support the channel. TeePublic, there's some Valley merch, there's some affiliate links to some other games I play, there's some Amazon links to some of my gear if you want to check out some of this stuff. I will see you guys next time. Make sure you check me out on social media and give me a Hulk fist bump before you go. ValleyFlyin out.